to be today in a place that I consider, and in the light of what the Speaker Miller just elaborated, Embu indeed the executive has continued to maintain that order. So to based here in Embu, and even the education directors and others. So to a very large extent, strategic hub, positioned in what was previously known as Eastern Province, merging the regions of Upper Eastern, Isiolo, Meru, Tharaka-Nithi, and itself, Machakos, Makueni, and Kitui, with the Embu being Embu's role as a regional hub is too central, with the Eastern region and the county commissioners, as I say, the regional commissioner is still based here. Therefore, reason to believe I'm actually at home, and I know that the others may want to think we are actually even linguistically at home. Therefore, may I, Mr. Speaker, greet your members in Kiembu, in Kondele, in Kimbere, Muriaro. Mr. Speaker, allow me to begin my speech by recognizing this county assembly's efforts through the inclusion of unique Embu County pillars of youth empowerment and industrialization to the Big Four agenda of His Excellency President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Vision of a 24 economy where every county will have its own factory and a one county, minimum one factory initiative, which we intend, of course, to put in place. And this, it is hoped, will create millions of jobs for the youth and unemployed. Mr. Speaker, another area that Embu County has stood out for is in the healthcare provision. Healthcare by this county assembly is a point of admiration. That a significant 1/3 of the entire health sector is something that the entire country should actually seek to emulate. This approach will go a long way towards solving one of the most pressing needs of our citizens, that is quality, affordable health care. Mr. Speaker, when I was Vice President to His Excellency President Mwai Kibaki, we envisioned that the vision in 20 goals will boost industrialization by promoting our agriculture. Today, Embu is known or renowned in East Africa, East and Central Africa, for being the most lucrative cash crop after tea, and has a potential to turn even a chicken farmer to a genuine tax-paying agri-millionaire. We therefore must exploit the untapped potential that across the river, Rupingazi, is very big in macadamia. President Kibaki and I, under the government of national unity, invested some 4.2 billion of connectivity, whose purpose has now been realized here in Embu through the creation of digital villages. This is also a central pillar of my vision for a 24-hour economy. Because in order for us to maximize our potential in digital economy, we need to provide data, indeed data bundles to our youth. And Embu County's idea while New York is asleep, for instance, our Kenyan youth are wide opportunities will be simply a click of a button away. I therefore see a vision of a Kenya for sustainable growth and in tackling youth unemployment. Mr. Speaker, MCA's budgetary decision-making process is core to the efficient running of county on the fight to ensure that the funds allocated to the county are utilized efficiently. There should be no room for and wananchi have the absolute right to transparency and accountability as far as their taxes are concerned. What I have in mind, Mr. Speaker, and this is a clear issue which needs resolution, and I do not even know Building Bridges initiative and the draft bill, which of course has run into headwinds, was that instead of county assemblies relying on the goodwill of the governor, exchequer directly to the Speaker's office. This will now be able to see that's power between the executive and the legislature should be reflected down I find it unacceptable. The speakers have to go kneel before governors to ask for funds. If we distribution of resources, we must institute the World Development Fund. Though the motion to action is not lost. Indeed, as you know, this was also a major recommendation under the draft constitutional amendment bill. To improve our constitution, introduce a concept of this fund to allow for development to flourish at the grassroots level, and then be able to give county assembly members at least a well electors, pretty similar to CDF. We have all seen the fruits of devolution at the county level. Wiper Democratic Movement forms the next government, God willing, I'm informed by Speaker Mbilu that in fact this matter does not even have to await to move with speed because although the matter may have been defeated, that my own party and my partners in One Kenya Alliance will work with the county assemblies to actualize, ahead of the next general election, if possible, the realization of the Ward Development Fund. This to achieve. Mr. Speaker, it is a known fact that Wiper Democratic Movement has no room for corruption. I, as a party leader, no officials of my party would defend anyone guilty of engaging in corrupt practices, particularly any culpable party that is found guilty, of course, following due process, will bear their own cross. Therefore, we eventually undermine and lead to the failure of our vision of the 2010 Constitution. So, Speaker, if we desire to further entrench equitable distribution of resources, we must institute the Ward Development Fund. And as I said, although the motion to actualize county governments can still achieve this because under Article 185 of the Constitution in the exercise of their functions before the Building Bridges initiative, we had actually foreseen this. So, Speaker, Honorable members, and a possible One Kenya Alliance government, and hopefully so, Mr. Speaker, I noticed one thing which is not common, and I never practiced that myself for 5 years, that Mr. Speaker, before coming to say the traditional prayer, actually prays in his own room. Did you know that? That I've let out of the cat, Mr. Speaker. You forgive me. But you can see, we have to remain God before coming to even face members of Parliament for wisdom and guidance. First of all, Mr. Speaker, agriculture prosperity and what we call the green or growth of the green, where the importance of this sector cannot be overemphasized, with its contribution of 26% to our GDP and the engagement of the bulk of our population, 65% of who reside in rural areas. And this morning, before coming here, Mr. Speaker, I had occasion to visit the rural areas, mainly in Mbeere South constituency. And I want to thank members from Mwea Ward and also Makima for making it possible, Mr. Speaker. So if we arrived a little late, you know where to lay the blame. I'm quite sure the Sergeant at times may not want to recommend. Wonderful members. Inextricably linked with other parts of the economic cycle, a systemic focused approach on agriculture will have very significant return leading to higher foreign exchange reserves. As agriculture forms up to 70% of the backbone of locally before this assembly and before the great people of Embu. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, will be what I've already present: tourism, construction, the service and manufacturing sectors all operate within this model. Imagine a Kenya, Mr. Speaker, the 3-shift, 8-hour workday will allow for more employment opportunities. Will unlock the potential of Embu's 2 national reserves, Mwea and Mount Kenya, with a resultant tourism. Tell you that when I was Minister for the Environment, I actually properly climbed the mountain because it's at home. Possible income and a depressed economy. Kenyans face a litany of taxes and in some cases double taxation. We intend to drastically overhaul our tax structure that will realize a significant increase in the spending powers of our citizens. With lower taxation, demand for goods and services will rise, and more importantly, the wananchi will have more money in their pockets. I've even proposed a 50% tax reduction, which is subject to debate, but I know if we did that and sell this to our regional partners, because Kenya is a member of the East African community, is also subject to. The reason Dubai grew is because any investor will know you invest in Dubai, you pay a little amount of tax, sometimes amazingly not accountable. We know in your oversight responsibility that a lot of inquiries, a lot of issues have been raised, ethics and anti-corruption. So, Speaker, we have a country endowed with, in fact, this is not a matter just for Kenya, but the African continent is experiencing what you look at those Kenyans unemployed, and sometimes you get scared. Where are those jobs coming from? This afternoon, and what may seemingly look like a big problem is actually the and experiencing aging population and the continent. Only there's no reason why Kenya should not be on the list of middle-income countries in the world, even by now. But of course, we we're all living with that, and I'm aware that the Jubilee administration, coming up with the 4 pillars, have also been trying to make that part of Vision 2030. I see a Kenya brimming with, I see a Kenyan people united with the spirit of nationhood, a Kenyan people full of gratitude for this great nation that God has blessed have also made their home as they see its potential and its attractions. Lastly, I see a Kenya where your identity will not determine your prosperity. This is why we are saying under One Kenya Alliance, one nation, one people. In the spirit of that one nation, one people, citizens to join me on our journey towards the realization of our dream for Wiper Democratic Movement is obviously the party of choice. Over coffee, Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, convincing some of your members to join Wiper. Together, we will form the next gender focus. Thank you so much for giving me the privilege to be the very first speaker. Although you say a dignitary, it's language that I don't believe in, because I'm a servant leader. I also wanted to, an issue that I've been addressing, or talking to people in Karaba, in Makima, in Kiritiri, because Embu is home. And you know, it comes a time when you really have to throw out caution to the Embu. I'm not just saying it for purposes of making honorable members. Truly is home. And I will come back to Embu. But while I was on the way, this issue of political intolerance is one that I'm wanting to mobilize, by the way, the freedom of movement, the freedom of residence, wherever you want, with fellow Kenyans, is a basic constitutional right, and some of my colleagues, my competitors, of course, all campaigning ahead of time. I can understand why people in a hurry. But I also, from the criticism I saw today in one of the daily papers, The Nation, listing the number 19. Certainly, Oka and myself have not been in that. And in fact, that is what gave impression that we were not visible. But now that positivity rate has been constantly at below 5%, Mr. Speaker, we intend to hit the road running. But it is the responsibility of IBC. We have an arbiter who seems to be sleeping on their job. Why do you into this economy? Because we are part of the global marketplace. And even an investor, again, in Washington, see stoning of cars. And if the personality of a deputy president, for example, is stoned with stones, I mean, is stoned, what does that tell you of that country's mien internationally? Therefore, we have work to do, my friends. Members of, join me in reclaiming the dignity of this country. It mustn't be every election cycle our youth, because I said Deputy President was in my home village on Mwingi, and was warmly received. People, of course, will listen, and then they go home minus the goodies that you leave, which may not necessarily make an impact because they know this is taxpayers' money, this is their money. They know the parastatals like Kenya Power and Lighting has really been grounded, and therefore making the cost of doing business in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, can I tell you for a fact, Kenya is a member of a commission as well. It's a member of COMESA. And Egypt has the lowest rate of fuel. Which plays a significant role in reducing the cost of doing business in Egypt. But here, because of it, facilities, and if you have visited Egypt, 10th of Ramadan city, for example, and denying us because they look at the headlines, say this with itself. Raila Odinga, who was my principal, as you know, Mr. Speaker, the reason I've been leading Wiper Democratic Movement and not leading the country, didn't win. In 2017, we won again, and even the cause Kweni, which is again in my backyard, and is most welcome. This is, please let us all determine that we will use one. Mr. Speaker, this country will not be the type of country. If we emulate the example of our sportsmen and women, we will probably be getting right. If we emulate, therefore, favor Embu. And congratulations, Mr. Speaker, because you have stood. We will dig in for devolution. When we say World Development Fund, we mean business. And I think this one, to the appeals about BBI and what have you, the Constitutional Amendment Bill, I think we should make progress with regard to to the World Development Fund. So the members who are interacting at that level with the grassroots leaders, really, members of Parliament do not have as much time to interact with looking at the welfare aspect of members of counters. Members of the National Assembly, and some of them are here in my group, get their car allowance. County assemblies, I think, courtesy of President Uhuru Kenyatta, was able to get some, I'm told, 2 million cards. Must be consistency. And I want to assure you, taking over the leadership, the reins of this country, the people we lead. We must have hearts of flesh and not hearts of stone, Mr. Speaker. If it was a motion, I would have said I beg to move, but I realized that my standing order abilities over the years may have suffered diminished perspective.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency.